I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, and I'm joined tonight, because I'm recording this in the evening time, for the first time in what seems like an eternity, by the one and only Tony Mallon. Tony is, the party leader for NI People, and also a founding member of the non-profit social enterprise, the Belfast Community Exchange. Welcome back, Tony. How are you doing?
Thanks for having us, Rick, on this new platform, and I wish you well on it.
Thanks very much. It's a new platform for me, and I know you've been on a few new platforms recently, but unfortunately, no new platform for the business of the day that's currently going on here in Northern Ireland, or the north of Ireland, depending how you want to refer to it. You know, some people can get a little bit touchy on that one. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. You're in Belfast, born and reared in West Belfast, got sick of the orange and green political divide, you know, entrenched. You got the SDLP and Sinn Féin on one side, you got the DUP and the UUP on the other side. And when they did meet in Stormont, if you could catch them in Parliament, they used to be at it rightly, and nothing really got done. So you tried to come up with an alternative to that. Heaven forbid, an actual working alternative, and hence NI People was born. Tell us a little bit about the party and how it has evolved and developed over the last year or two.
Well, my own personal journey started roughly about 3 years ago, the election time for Stormont. So I stood as an independent, and key to what I am all about is basically community activism. So you mentioned there about the not-for-profit social enterprise. So basically what I'm doing every single week is going out and helping people, whether it's collecting and delivering furniture, clothes, food, all for free for people in need. And that's the sort of thing that I like to do, actually physically help people on the ground, rather than just the usual sound bites that you get from all these career politicians that saying, oh, like bleeding hearts, so it's terrible, we should do more. And, you know, whereas I have the outlook where, no, let's actually go out and do it. Let's go and help people, you know. So yeah, it sort of grew from strength there. The last 12 months or so, we have got a group of people together to form NI People, which you've just mentioned, and we're a completely different political party. We're not orange and green. We're not even left and right. You know, it's down to each individual's own viewpoint of what their policy should be. So if I was to describe my politics in a clumsy way, I would say I'm a right-wing socialist or a left-wing conservative. You know, I just basically pick what makes sense. And the beauty about us as a party, we're a party of independence. So each person is there to represent their area first and not the party, which unfortunately we've seen in Northern Ireland, whether it be cover-ups or whether it be party interests, the party comes first and the people come second. And the thinking behind it is our structure would allow more debate and more to and fro and collaboration and actually thoughts to come up with better ideas and policies, you know. So we are what we say. We are actually diverse and inclusive, whereas I think a lot of those parties that use those sound bites, they're only inclusive if you use their language and not everybody else's, whereas we're very much an open book where we're bounded together by set party principles as such, but the nuances is down to each individual. So
I think just before I hit record here with you, I was just talking to you because I haven't spoke to you for about 8 months. Just, you know, how's stuff going? How's things working out for you guys? Just a general overview. And you said something very powerful that I didn't get on camera, but I'm gonna repeat it here if you don't mind. But you said, what's the worst that can happen with what we're trying to do with NI People, or what's the worst thing that can happen with this community exchange? The worst thing that can happen is you actually help some people out. Okay, so set aside anything else. The worst thing that can happen is you're actually helping people out in the local community. How do you identify who you're supposed to help? Do people come to you? Do people contact you and say, I know of somebody that needs a helping hand, and I know people donate things to you, and then you go out and volunteer in your spare time to deliver things? But how do you identify that, and what kind of people are you actually helping at the minute?
basically, people, very generous community that we live in here, especially in Belfast where I am. People will come to me and say, I've got a sofa, I've got a bed, I've got food. You know, it's free to a good home. And they contact me because they know that I don't charge for selling it on, or I don't charge for delivery or anything. So the other day, I collected, believe it or not, a washing machine. I was in Newry at an event, drove to Belfast to get a washing machine, and then drove to Derry to deliver it to this woman. Now, you mentioned politicians earlier. This woman has been sitting for 9 months without a washing machine in her house because she can't afford to buy one. And there's myself picked up washing machine mats and toasters and everything else for this lady, and delivered all for free. And you know yourself, Derry isn't just around the corner. It took me about an hour and a half from Belfast, and it was another hour from Newry. So it's 2.5 hours out of my time there, and then another hour and a half back again. But this woman was absolutely over the moon, and she couldn't be more thankful. And the day before as well, there was a single mum before, and I got a bed, I got a wardrobe and chest of drawers. Or sorry, it wasn't a wardrobe; it was tables and chairs. And their son was about 3 or 4 years of age, and he ran out on the street because he was so excited to actually get a bed. You know, there's been a couple of occasions where, you know, people's body language, people's reaction has actually left an imprint on me, and that was just one of them. About the child runs out because he got something as simple as a bed. And a lot of these people, there's charity shops out there, but my issue with charity shops is, like the CEOs and things like that, they're getting £150,000 a year, while the normal workers in it usually work for free. But these people, they're on the breadline, and £100 delivery may not be like an awful lot of money to some people, but £100 is a lot of money if you haven't got anything. And the fact that I can lift it up and then deliver it for free, that's just a game changer for so many people. And you know, if you've been following me on Facebook or Twitter or anything, you know, I'm out near enough every evening, you know, on weekends as well. The need is out there, unfortunately, and we just, as you say, we'll just keep going, we'll just keep helping people, and we'll put others to shame, unfortunately, because we'll let our actions do the talking for us.
Just listening to you there as well, you know, some people, of course, you're going to get your critics, you're going to get your naysayers. Oh, he's just blowing his own trumpet. He's talking about what he's doing, but you're not doing it for glory, and you're certainly not doing it for pay. And may I also say, you're not doing it because there's an election coming up. Okay. Normally you see a flurry of activity with politicians, period. Whenever there's an election coming up, whether it be a European election or a local election or council election, they're out canvassing around the doors. They've got their mug shots plastered all over lampposts and places of, high visibility in the community. They promise the earth coming up to elections, and then they get elected and then they disappear. That tends to be the modus operandi of your average everyday Irish politician. So the work, even you said there, you know, you're from West Belfast, you're living in Belfast, you're not going to, even that woman that you helped in Derry, you're not going to get her vote. She can't vote for you anyway. So, you know, you're not even doing it for that respect. And it's strange because I spoke to a guy earlier on today, Councillor Tom McDonald. He's based in Kildare, and he spent the weekend in a transit van driving across the country to Roscommon with a couple other volunteers, decent folk, who loaded the thing up with supplies and took it to really badly hit parts of West Ireland after the storm Eowyn. Really wrecked their areas. All their power lines are down. There's no real direct assistance, especially for the people out in the sticks. So the question I have for you is, with all the money that's floating around everywhere, there seems to be grants here and grants there and millions here and budgets there. Why is it down to Tony Mallon to drive from Belfast to Derry or to Newry to pick up a washing machine, then drive it to Derry to give it to a woman that the councillor won't help? And why is it up to Tom McDonald to load up a van from Kildare and drive across to Roscommon and Mayo to help people with no funding and no help and no assistance? What's it going to take for people to wake up and realise that the old voting lines, the old traditional voting lines, are getting people absolutely nowhere? Do you think the penny will ever drop?
I can only speak for myself, and I've been doing this sort of charitable work for years before I even entered politics, and it's an ugly part of what you have to do. You have to advertise what you do in order to get things donated to you, because people wouldn't know that I can do this service. So it's a bit of a catch-22, but it's in me, and it's always going to be in me. And even if I go away to far away country, I'll still be going out of my way to help people. But in terms of the grant funding and things like that, I think, especially coming from West Belfast, like Sinn Féin, they only help people if they can get paid to help people, is my experience. And you can see that clearly if you go on Company's House. You can look at all the charities, you get all the charitable groups out there. You can see who the directors of all these charities are and how much money is actually coming in to the community. And that money isn't getting filtered out effectively to the community themselves. Because if it is, then how come West Belfast is like number one for child poverty in the UK and has been for decades, number three for overall for poverty in the UK? My opinion is that these parties, Sinn Féin, People Before Profit, all the rest of them, they need a bad guy to blame. Excuse me, they need a bad guy to blame for their failures, and their failures is stretching back nearly half a century. Sinn Féin in West Belfast, 1970 odds, Jerry Adams first got elected from, I think it was Jerry Fitt. So they need a bad guy to blame for all the harsh socialism has failed them. And what I'm saying is socialism is relying on other people's money to fund projects and things like that. And quite clearly, whenever there's money involved, people put their own vested interests first. And, the money's not going where it should be going. And all these councillors and MLAs, they're all named as directors on it. So where is the money going is what I would ask.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem to be filtering up the Derry, and it doesn't seem to be filtering across to Roscommon or certain parts of Mayo, or as Tom said, all the way from Donegal, the whole west coast, all the way down to Cork. In some way, shape, or form, has these pockets of real depravity and dereliction that effectively the government have washed their hands on. They just don't. There's nothing there for them. The focus is really on Dublin, or up here, the focus is really on Belfast primarily, and maybe Derry too. Being two bigger cities. And Newry, if you want to call them cities, our definition of a city over here is different than anywhere else in the world, what actually qualifies to be called a city. But again, bringing it back to, track records of the established parties. And today I noticed there was posts being put up by Michelle O'Neill, who's the First Minister for Northern Ireland. She was saying that the executive 1 year ago, she said, 1 year ago today, history was made as I took up the position of First Minister. Every day since, I've worked to ensure all our people are fairly represented and meet the needs and aspirations of workers, families and communities. I remain determined to do everything I can to build a new, brighter future with the best opportunities in life for all who call this place home. Does that also apply to that wee woman in Derry with a washing machine, or is she exempted from that statement?
I think if you're in their club, you're looked after, in my opinion, and it's a bit of a carve up, as you know, in Northern Ireland, both communities. You've got the DUP and also Sinn Féin, and it really is a carve up in terms of funding. We'll give you this if you give us that, and that's the way it works. Unfortunately, everybody knows it, and the little people, like that woman with her child run out on the street, or the woman from Derry, they have nobody to turn to, and say, otherwise, why is she waiting 9 months to get a washing machine to wash her children's clothes? Why is the 4-year-old not sleeping on her bed, or on his bed? There was a girl in Poglass. She had asked her neighbour for bread because she didn't have any money to feed her son. These are stories, horror stories that are unfortunately everywhere. And in a perfect scenario, we shouldn't need food banks. We shouldn't need charitable groups and things like that. But we need to focus on who's genuine charitable groups and who's actually out there on the CEOs making £150,000 for themselves. Who's the genuine ones. And as you say, politicians, you only see them 6 weeks before an election, and that's going to be our slogan basically on our election posters in 3 years' time. We're here all year round, not just 6 weeks before an election. And I've proved that. There's nobody can take that away, and there's other people that's part of us that we've just consistently building. If you go back 3 years ago, I said, I'm going to get a charity, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. 3 years later, we've got a charity registered, Company's House. We've got an office here in Peter's Hill. we actually got new allotments in Lisnabrini. They're just getting designed and handed out to the people with an orchard. We've got another allotment promised to us in Fermanagh. So in 3 years, look how far we've came. We had 4 people stood for a snap election there for Westminster 6, 7 months ago. So this is where we've got in 3 years. Imagine where we're going to be in another 3 years' time.
Yeah.
I have a lot of hope for what we're doing.
Yeah, and I have spoke to you on and off in a previous role I had with TNT Radio. I talked to you 2.5 years ago whenever you were first running as an MLA, and I remember there was pieces run. You were interviewed for, newspapers, and you said what your plans were, what you hoped to do, and to be fair, sitting here now, 2.5, 3 years later, you are ticking them boxes off, and it is a long grind to get yourself established and to get yourself known, not just as being a door knocker 6 weeks before an election, but as you said, what's the worst can happen? I can be accused of is trying to help a few people out. And in case I forget to do it, because I've got a head like a sieve sometimes, in the description box underneath this video, I'll put a link through to the NI People website, and you'll be able to see what they're all about. And if you're in the position where you can donate any household items or goods or whatever you want to inquire about it, you can get in contact with Tony or one of the team through that. Or maybe somebody's listening to this tonight, Tony, they're in dire straits. I don't know if you can do anything for them. There's no guarantees, but if you are stuck and you are getting it tight, at least it might be worth a reach out to you guys to see if anything can be done. So check the description box underneath this video, and Tony's contact details will be in there. I just wanted to throw that in case I forget to do it at the end of this clip. So one other thing I want to pick up on your website, one of the slogans that you have on your website is, to try and describe what you're all about. You call it common sense for all. Common sense for all, not prosperity and untold riches and, beautiful crystal clear water coming through your taps. No, common sense for all. Again, what a damning statement it is for our society at the minute that you have to run on a slogan of common sense for all, as if to say, and rightly so, there's a shortage, there's a famine of common sense in the world right now. The world is a crazy, lunatic place, and none more so than Ireland at the minute. Everything seems to be inverted. And one of the other things that we were looking at earlier on was the curriculum that are being taught to schools, for example, about multiple genders and about the sexual education for progressively younger children. You're seeing a lot of horror stories about the so-called drag queen story hours in public libraries and in the south. Just the list goes on and on and on, and you wonder to yourself, are you living in clown world? Have the lunatics really taken over the asylum? And personally, I think they have, Tony. So to run on a slogan of common sense for all, to me, seems to be about as good a slogan as you could hope to have.
Mm-hmm. Things like anti-big corporations, anti-industrial military complex, pro-world peace, pro-freedom of speech. These are things that are sort of key to us. And we would have been like almost hippies, left-wing traditionalists years ago, and suddenly that we're being flung into the far-right category. And it's suddenly the lefties are saying no, you shouldn't be allowed free speech, and they're like under Biden's regime, we were closer to World War III than we've ever been. So as you said, inverted. That's exactly what's happened. And there was a funny saying that if you want to annoy a conservative, you tell them lies. And if you want to annoy a socialist, you tell them the truth. So it's just crazy how things have went. So, but yeah, I mean, one of the things we're pushing on here at the moment is big is the RSE, the teaching relationships and education, sexuality in schools, and parents were polled actually on the content of it, which comes from a UN report, believe it or not, and then the WHO, and they're looking at they allow children to identify as whatever gender that they believe from a very young age. There's actually some instances where people identify as cats, and some schools have put litter trays in the toilets for them, instead of actually saying, this person has a mental illness, or there's something wrong here. We need to actually give them the help that they need. They're pondering to it. They're almost encouraging it. And what we're going to find is there'll be a ticking time bomb in 15, 20 years' time whenever all these children suddenly realise, hold on a wee second, society was encouraging this, and I've went and got, mutilated my body parts, and now, I'm sterilised, or, I'm going to have to take medication the rest of my days. So I think what's happened the last 4 or 5 years especially has went far beyond what's common sense. And thankfully, with people like RFK now in America's talking about leaving the WHO as well. There's common sense returning, and not just America, globally as well. We're seeing a spring back to normality and common sense. So it's not that I think we were wrong ourselves. I just think we were early.
Yeah.
So,
talk about a return to common sense and normality. Earlier on, it was, highlighting Michelle O'Neill as the First Minister and Sinn Féin and, what really has been done. But it would be unfair to single them out as a source of nothingness or a source of friction, because they don't operate alone. And to be honest, my own opinion in it is all parties are, it's just a case of one's as bad as the other and which is the least bad. Okay. So in this crazy clown inverted world also, there was a call last week put out that men should speak up more against violence against women, or they should speak out if they see women being intimidated, which is fair enough. If you can do it, then you should do it. But the thing is, Tony, a lot of the political representatives from these major parties, number one, they can't define what a woman is, as an adult biological female, for example. It's just very simple, but they can't just quite spit that out. And recently, there was a poll, or there was a vote held among MLAs in Northern Ireland who voted to allow biological males, men, to be locked up in female prisons. So you have male offenders voting to be locked up with women offenders in prisons. And the Alliance Party, there's a whole squad of them voted on that one. Sinn Féin, of course, there was a whole clatter of them. The SDLP voted in there. Jerry Carroll, PBPA, was in there too. Claire Sugden, Independent, in there too. It's not just one party. And on the other side, with the DUP and the UUP, you look at the health service and the health minister, Mike Nesbitt, Ulster Party, just what is there to show there other than crisis after crisis? You look at the Stormont, you look at the speaker in Stormont, Edwin Poots. He's more concerned at the minute about who's dressed in a certain way, and worried about the dress code in there and the way people are talking and phrasing their P's and Q's. What's your P's and Q's? With so much else going on in there now in this country, you would really have to wonder, is it not on full display for the world to see that their priorities are not in the right place?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of division as well. See this, you're talking about the violence against women and girls, which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
We should be addressing it. There's too many women and girls that do get murdered. But then men are also more likely to be assaulted. Men are also more likely to be made homeless, made bankrupt following a divorce. And then I watched the podcast with Jordan Peterson before, and he says men and women express anger in different ways. Women, it's more likely with character assassination and innuendo, gossip. And the amount of men suicides compared to the female is astronomical. It's a lot higher. And it's basically because, the whole system is geared, I feel, in favour of women, and men just get cast aside. They're seen as what is it? One of the comedians says, "There's only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. And men only love in the condition that they provide something."
Mm.
So I think we should stop this sort of male versus female back and forth, and we should actually be helping each other, recognizing that we're all different and what our key strengths are, and coming together.
It's another wage, isn't it? It's another wage to divide people on.
Yeah.
If it's not on orange and green, or if it's not on left versus right, or if it's not on Protestant versus Catholic, then they're going to try and bring it in. It's men versus women, or racists versus non-racists. If you're against, for example, your country being swamped with people flooding in from other countries, when your own infrastructure can't actually support your own people. You look at the homelessness situation in Ireland at the minute, tens of thousands of Irish people, men, women and children have no homes. But yet with all, there's hundreds of thousands of people pouring in year after year and being put up in modular accommodation. You look at what's happening in the West at the moment, as Tom said, you have people out there with no electric, no running water, no heat, no nothing. If that was happening in Dublin, something would be done about it. And there's no reports yet of any of the iPass centres being out for 11 days. Can you imagine the uproar there would be if an asylum centre had no water, heat, food, or anything else, internet, phones for 11 days? You wouldn't hear the end of it. You wouldn't hear the end of it, but because it's rural west of Ireland, nah, let them muck in amongst themselves and look after themselves. It's screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, the old slogan years ago was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly the same now. It's like the Irish are allowed to be sleeping on the streets. My argument was always be, right, bringing the Irish homeless to the hotels as well, the free food, electric, and clothes. That's equality. What are we arguing about here? Mm-hmm. But it's because there's EU funding for the resettlement grants and all the rest of it. It's not that the politicians don't care. They only care if they get paid, and that's what it is. A lot of these politicians, they know people, or else they might have hotels like Healy Rays. They're famous politicians in the South. They actually own hotels, and they're making money out of bringing people in. But there's no money to be made from bringing in the Irish homeless. So it's just greed, corruption, and that's basically in a nutshell. If people can be bought for their principles, they're not worth their time, basically.
Yeah, I'm hoping. You mentioned in another 3 years the election posters will be going back up again, and you'll have on it. Well, we've been here for the last 4 years. We're not just appearing now. There's 6 weeks out from an election. The question is asked over and over again: when will people wake up? When will people come to their senses? You look at recently there, and last November the elections were held in the Republic of Ireland, and it's the same crowd in, it's the same effective coalition government. Granted, they've reshuffled the deck a little bit, but by and large, people are saying, no, we're happy. We're happy with Micheál Martin. We're happy with Simon Harris. We're happy with Helen McEntee, who's now been moved from the Justice Minister after failing catastrophically at that point. She's now the Minister for Education. So they're now letting her loose on children, as it were, in schools and dictating curriculum on one thing and another. What will it take, if anything? Are people so dumbed down and suffering from Stockholm Syndrome that they can't wake up and see this? Or is it simply not affected enough people maybe in their pockets yet? Some people are still living at large in Ireland. They're doing okay. They're paying their bills comfortably. The houses are appreciating in value comfortably. But will it take a real slam dunk on the more affluent members of society, which is coming? It's not a case of if it comes, it's a case of when it's coming. Is that what it's going to take, a collapse before people eventually come to their senses, by which stage it could arguably be too late?
Like the Southern Ireland, I believe, I might be wrong, but what I've heard was that it's the only sitting constitution that never swapped over the parties, following an election. And to me, that highlights just the failure of Sinn Féin or to the voters in the South. They really let themselves down. They're third place basically in a one-horse race. They it was there for the taking, but because it was flip-flopped so much, they're LGBTQ one second, and then they're bringing Muslims from the other, who culturally are the opposite of the LGBTQ community. They're, everything that they stand for, it was always anti-Irish, but traditionally they were pro-Irish. So they just flip-flopped in their policies. It's whatever way the wind blows for them, and they let themselves down badly. I think what needs to happen down there is a real opposition needs to emerge. Like the Irish People Party, for example, or somebody like that needs, but it's going to take time. I mean, Sinn Féin formed in 1971, I think it was, in Northern Ireland, and they only became Michelle O'Neill First Minister last year or a couple of years ago. So, it takes time, and I'm testing it myself. So we're starting from scratch ourselves, you know. So
Hopefully the same time scale doesn't apply to you lot and people. Otherwise, you'll be about 106
uh-huh.
by the time you get to be First Minister, Tony.
Still lifting sofas up.
You'll be shuffling up the steps of Stormont, or they maybe put a wee stair lift in for you if you're being dropped off at the front door. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, well, I'll just keep going anyway for as long as my legs carry me. But Northern Ireland politics is completely different than the South. Northern Ireland, I've spoke to actually a couple of Sinn Féin canvassers in the last election, and one of them, he told me he was pro-life, pro-Catholic, anti-woke. And there was a Sinn Féin candidate in Southern Ireland, and she actually turned around and says, Catholics are far right. So clearly he's not aligned with the party at all now.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another girl as well. She was pro-life as well. And I asked them, why are you voting for them? Both of them says United Ireland. So they don't care about anything else. They've just got blinkers on, a United Ireland. And I think what will cure Northern Ireland actually is what happened in Scotland with the Scottish Nationalist Party. They had a referendum, and now the parties fell apart because they failed to get that vote. But it'll happen here as well. If we get the referendum, it'll be in the mid-30s to the high 30%, because that's all that they want to join. And for me, it's not even a United Ireland, it's a European Unionism that Sinn Féin are selling, because a United Ireland to me was always, we look after ourselves here, we pass our own laws, and we still trade with Europe, but we don't give them the keys to the house. We say, right, this is what we accept and what we don't accept. That's United Ireland in my head. And, you know, what Sinn Féin started off with from where they are now is a million miles away. And what will kill them as a party is whenever the voters realise they're miles away from getting it, and then they'll have to start voting for people on policy rather than ideology.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose like everything else, as the passage of time goes by, this will all pan out. We're going to see, will there be a United Ireland? If there is, we'll have to see how that one works out. If there's not, then we're going to see maybe a seismic shift away from the popularity that Sinn Féin has at the minute. But in the meantime, I just wanted to get an update from you on what you guys were about. Well, I knew what you were about, but what you're currently involved with. And most importantly, to be honest, as a result of this conversation, maybe somebody's listening in and you're in dire straits, or maybe you're listening in your position, you could maybe help some people out that are in dire straits. Check the description box below, and there'll be a link through to the website for NI People. And I'm sure if you reach out to them, reach out to Tony, he's got a contact page on there. He'll be able to keep you right as to whether or not he can do anything for you, or if he can take stuff from you. I don't know, but it's on a case by case basis. But you never know. Maybe somebody will hear this, Tony, and they're stuck, and you maybe be able to help somebody out. So in that case, just use your words. What's the worst that could have happened here tonight from you and me talking? Maybe somebody will actually be helped as a result of it, and it would be nice if that was actually the case. But many thanks to you for your time this evening. I really do appreciate it. The links and details will be below, and we'll stay in contact more. We drifted a little bit there for about 8 months, but it's nice to keep getting updated on what you're about, because you're evolving and you're progressing and you're growing, and that, if nothing else, should inspire some people to say that not everything's stuck in the mud, not everything's a dead duck or sliding backwards. Okay, so in the meantime, Mr. Tony Mallon, massive thanks to you this evening, and for now, I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk No Reward Media, over and out.